The year was 1817, and something unseen had begun to whisper through the quiet countryside of Tennessee. What started as faint scratching sounds along the walls of a modest farmhouse would soon spiral into one of the most terrifying hauntings in American history. A presence that spoke, that laughed, that threatened, and, according to legend, even killed. This is the story of the Bell Witch, a case so chilling that it drew the attention of a future president and left a family broken by fear. The Bell family lived on a peaceful stretch of land near the Red River. John Bell, a respected farmer, shared the home with his wife Lucy and their children. Life was ordinary, predictable, until one night when strange noises began echoing through the house. It sounded like rats gnawing at the bedposts, chains dragging across the floor, and something pounding against the walls with unnatural force. At first, John dismissed it as tricks of the imagination. But when the noises grew louder and more violent, the family could no longer ignore it. Soon, the disturbances took a darker turn. Their daughter Betsy began experiencing violent attacks. She would wake up screaming as invisible hands slapped her, pulled her hair, and left marks across her body. The entity wasn't just present. It was targeting her. Then, it spoke. A faint voice emerged from the darkness, barely audible at first, repeating words it seemed to learn from the family. Over time, the voice grew stronger, clearer, and disturbingly intelligent. It called itself Kate, claiming to be the spirit of a neighbor who had been wronged by John Bell. Whether that claim was true or not, the entity made one thing clear. It despised John Bell. Word spread quickly through the community. Neighbors gathered to witness the strange occurrences, many leaving shaken after hearing the disembodied voice speak directly to them. Some even claimed the spirit revealed secrets it had no way of knowing. It quoted scripture, sang hymns, and engaged in long conversations, as if it were alive. One of the most famous visitors was Andrew Jackson, who would later become President of the United States. Curious about the reports, Jackson traveled to the Bell farm with a group of men. According to legend, as their wagon approached the property, it suddenly stopped, as if stuck in mud. No matter how hard they tried, the horses refused to move. Then a voice echoed through the air, laughing and saying it would let them pass. That night, Jackson and his men stayed at the house. They reportedly witnessed the entity torment Betsy and heard the voice speak clearly in the room. By morning, Jackson was said to have declared he'd rather face the British in battle than spend another night with the Bell Witch. But the haunting didn't stop. It intensified. The entity's focus shifted more aggressively toward John Bell. He began suffering from strange symptoms. His face would twitch uncontrollably. He had difficulty swallowing. At times, he seemed paralyzed, as if something unseen was draining his life. The voice mocked him constantly, predicting his death and claiming responsibility for his suffering. In 1820, John Bell died under mysterious circumstances. Just before his death, a strange vial of liquid was found in the house. The entity claimed it had poisoned him and even forced a drop into a cat's mouth to prove its lethality. The cat died instantly. Whether this was truth or manipulation, no one could say. But after John's death, the entity declared its work finished. It continued to haunt the family for a short time before eventually disappearing, promising to return in 7 years. Now, here's where things become even more unsettling. Years later, members of the Bell family claimed the entity did return, just as it said it would. It spoke again, briefly, before vanishing for good. But the legend didn't end there. Over the decades, stories of the Bell Witch continued to spread, growing darker with each retelling. So what exactly happened in that farmhouse? Before we dive into the theories, take a moment to subscribe to Shadow Files and hit the like button. If stories like this keep you up at night, you're in the right place. And trust me, this case only gets stranger from here. Let's look at the clues. Unlike many ghost stories, the Bell Witch haunting has an unusual amount of documentation. Letters, journals, and first-hand accounts from witnesses describe the same events. The consistency of these reports is what makes the case so difficult to dismiss outright. Multiple people claimed to hear the voice. Not just the family, but visitors too. Some said it answered questions intelligently, even predicting future events. Others claimed it revealed personal secrets that left them shaken. Then there's the physical evidence. Betsy's injuries were reportedly witnessed by outsiders. Marks appeared on her skin without explanation. Objects moved on their own. Food went missing. Blankets were pulled from beds. Skeptics argue that mass hysteria or elaborate hoaxes could explain these events. But if it was a trick, it was an incredibly sophisticated one, maintained over years and involving dozens of witnesses. Another strange detail is the entity's selective behavior. It didn't attack everyone equally. It seemed to target specific individuals, particularly John and Betsy. It also showed signs of personality, humor, even cruelty. And then there's the claim of murder. If the entity truly poisoned John Bell, it would make this one of the only ghost stories in American history where a supernatural force is accused of killing a human being. Now let's break down the theories. The first and most obvious is that the Bell Witch was exactly what it claimed to be. A vengeful spirit. According to this theory, the entity was the ghost of a woman who believed John Bell had cheated her in a land deal. Fueled by anger, she returned to torment him and his family. Supporters of this theory point to the voice's intelligence and the detailed knowledge it displayed. They argue that no simple hoax could replicate such consistent and complex behavior. But there's another possibility. Some historians believe the entire haunting was an elaborate prank orchestrated by a local schoolteacher named Richard Powell. According to this theory, Powell used ventriloquism and psychological manipulation to create the illusion of a haunting. His motive? He was reportedly in love with Betsy Bell and wanted to drive away her suitor. It sounds far-fetched, but ventriloquism was a known skill at the time. And if Powell had accomplices, it could explain how the voice seemed to appear in different locations. Still, this theory struggles to explain the physical attacks and the long duration of the events. Then there's the psychological explanation. Some experts suggest the Bell family may have experienced a form of collective delusion, fueled by stress and religious beliefs. In the early 1800s, belief in spirits and the supernatural was widespread. Fear can be contagious, especially in isolated communities. But again, this doesn't fully explain the involvement of so many outside witnesses. Another theory blends the supernatural with the natural. Some researchers propose that environmental factors, like toxic gases or mold, could have caused hallucinations and strange physical symptoms. Combined with fear and suggestion, this could create a convincing haunting experience. It's a modern explanation, but one that lacks direct evidence in this case. And finally, there's the idea that we simply don't understand what happened. That the Bell Witch represents something beyond our current knowledge. Not necessarily a ghost, but something equally unexplained. A phenomenon that mimics intelligence, interacts with humans, and leaves behind just enough evidence to keep us questioning. Whatever the truth is, the Bell Witch haunting remains one of the most disturbing cases in American folklore. A story where the line between reality and nightmare becomes impossible to define. And maybe that's why it still lingers. Because deep down, we want answers. We want to believe there's a logical explanation. But cases like this remind us that sometimes, the unknown doesn't follow our rules. So the next time you hear a strange noise in the dark, ask yourself one question. What if it's listening? If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most terrifying mysteries, make sure to subscribe to Shadow Files and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. And let me know in the comments. Do you believe the Bell Witch was real, or just one of the greatest hoaxes ever told? Because some stories don't stay buried. They wait.